He held me when I was shattered, promised he'd never leave, watched me heal with his love, and then used every piece of my healing to destroy me. But he forgot one thing. I know how to break without making a sound. That's not just how the story ends. That's how it began. With me shattered. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Actually shattered. I remember the night everything fell apart so clearly, it still wakes me up at 3:17 a.m. Sometimes, choking on air that suddenly feels too sharp to breathe. It was raining. Not the soft, movie scene kind of rain. It was cold, loud, punishing, the kind that slaps your skin and makes you feel like even the sky is mad at you. I was sitting on the bathroom floor of my tiny one-bedroom apartment. The lights were off. The tile was cold beneath me. My back was pressed against the door like I was holding it shut from something that wanted in. But there was nothing there. No one knocking. No one coming. That's the part that broke me the most. Not the silence, but the fact that I wasn't surprised by it anymore. I had no one. Not after my mom died. Not after my father stopped speaking to me because I reminded him too much of her. Not after Andrew, the man who taught me that I love you can sound an awful lot like you're worthless if you wait long enough. I wasn't healing. I wasn't coping. I was surviving in the most technical, biological sense. I breathed. I ate. I slept. Occasionally. I laughed at jokes I didn't hear and answered, "I'm fine," like it was a reflex, not a lie. And that's when he walked in. Not into the apartment. Into my life. And somehow made it worse in the kindest, cruelest way possible. His name was Caleb. I met him at the cafe I worked at, the Honey Bean. Cute little place with yellow cushions and cracked wooden floors. It smelled like cinnamon and second chances. He came in during my night shift. Always ordered black coffee. No sugar. No cream. No smile. At first, I barely noticed him. He was quiet, handsome in a subtle, forgettable way. The kind of man you wouldn't pick out of a crowd, but later, you'd wonder why you couldn't stop thinking about him. Then, one evening, he asked me how my day was. Simple, polite, forgettable, except no one had asked me that in weeks. Maybe months. Not like they meant it. I didn't answer. I just nodded, gave him his coffee, and went back to wiping down tables. The next time he came in, he remembered my name. The third time, he brought a copy of Wuthering Heights and said, "You remind me of Catherine." Not the tragic part. The fire. I laughed. Not because I thought it was funny, but because something inside me flickered. Something that hadn't flickered in a long, long time. Caleb became a regular. Every night. Same order. Same booth. Eventually, he'd stay until closing and walk me to my car. It wasn't long before he started noticing things about me that I tried hard to keep buried. "You hold your breath when you're anxious," he said once casually, like it wasn't a dagger. "I noticed you never wear earrings," he said another time. "Let me guess, your ex told you they made you look cheap?" I froze. He smiled softly. "Yeah, I've met men like him." I didn't ask how. I didn't want to know. I just let him keep noticing me. Because there's something dangerously seductive about being seen after years of feeling invisible. It didn't take long before I let him in. Emotionally at first, then literally. He started spending nights at my place, and I started sleeping through the night for the first time in years. He made breakfast. He bought me flowers, not roses, but lilies, because I told him they reminded me of my mother. He left sticky notes on the fridge. "You survived another day. I'm proud of you. There's magic in your mess. Even shattered glass reflects light." How could I not fall in love with that? But love, I've learned, is never just about the moment you fall. It's about what happens after you hit the ground. I told Caleb things I'd never told anyone. How I used to draw when I was little. How I stopped after Andrew ripped one of my sketches and said, "No one cares about your scribbles." How I stopped wearing yellow because it reminded me of the dress I wore the day my mom died. How I sometimes wished I could forget everything, just unexist for a little while. He listened. God, did he listen? He never judged, never offered cliches. Just held me. Held me when I cried. Held me when I trembled. Held me when I was empty. He said, I will never leave you. Not even at your worst. And I believed him. That was my second mistake. Because piece by piece, I began to rebuild. I started painting again. Small things at first. Just streaks of color on torn paper. Then canvases. Then full walls. He watched me with quiet pride. Said, I love watching you come back to life. I smiled at strangers again. I called my dad, even though he didn't pick up. I started writing in a journal. Dreams. Hopes. Fears. All the things Caleb said he wanted to understand. I wasn't just healing. I was blooming. Because of him. Because I thought he wanted me whole. But I was wrong. So terribly, painfully wrong. He didn't love me despite my brokenness. He loved me because of it. Because as long as I was broken, I needed him. And Caleb. Caleb didn't want a partner. He wanted a project. Something fragile enough to mold, to hold, to own. But I didn't know that yet. Not then. Not while he was kissing my forehead and tucking me into bed. Not while he was telling me I was his miracle. Not while he was reading my journals when I wasn't looking. Not while he was planting little seeds of doubt in places I thought I'd already healed. I didn't see it because I didn't want to see it. Because when someone saves you from drowning, you don't check to see if they're the ones who pushed you in. But the truth was already starting to crack through. And soon, it would break everything. They say when something's too good to be true, it usually is. But no one tells you what it feels like when you're living inside the lie. For a while, I kept waiting for something to go wrong. It felt unnatural, the happiness, the quiet safety. I told myself, maybe this is what normal feels like. Maybe love isn't supposed to hurt. And just when I started to believe that, the mask slipped. It started small. One night, we were watching TV, some documentary about trauma recovery. I was curled up beside Caleb, half asleep when I murmured, I think I'm finally starting to feel normal again. There was a pause. Then he said flatly, don't get ahead of yourself. I looked at him. He didn't smile. Didn't flinch. Just stared straight ahead. I laughed awkwardly, trying to brush it off. What do you mean? He shrugged. Just, healing isn't a straight line, you know? You still have a lot to work through. You're not exactly stable yet. The words felt like ice water down my spine. Not because they were harsh, but because they were intentional. That was the first time I realized. He wasn't building me up. He was tracking my progress. Like a scientist observing a test subject. After that, I started noticing more. The way he'd compliment me. But only after I apologized. The way he'd suggest I wasn't ready to do things on my own. Maybe don't apply for that new job yet. I don't want you to overwhelm yourself. It's cute how you try to be independent, but you still need guidance. Your art's good, but I liked it better when it came from your darker place. And every time I pushed back, every time I questioned his words, he'd twist it around. You're overreacting. You're being paranoid again. Don't sabotage the only good thing in your life. And the worst one. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? That line? That was his favorite. It wasn't just emotional anymore. It was psychological warfare, slow, strategic, suffocating. He started keeping tabs on me. If I stayed out too long after work, he'd text. Are you with someone? Why aren't you replying? Funny how you're suddenly so busy now that you're healed. At first, I made excuses. He was just insecure. Just worried. He loved me too much. Wasn't that the problem? But deep down, I knew. This wasn't love. It was control. The journal I once used to pour my soul into? I found it one day, left open on the wrong page. My handwriting looked tampered with, like someone had written between the lines. Added things I never said. Sentences like, "Sometimes I think I'd be nothing without him. I don't trust myself to be alone yet." They weren't mine, but they were in my voice. I confronted Caleb, heart pounding. He looked genuinely hurt, offended, even. "How dare you accuse me of something like that?" he said. "I was just making sure you weren't spiraling again." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I didn't trust myself anymore. That's what he'd done. Chipped away at my instincts, layer by layer, until I stopped believing the fire inside me was even real. He started isolating me more. My friend Brielle tried to visit once, said she missed me, hadn't seen me in weeks. Caleb said, "She's not good for your mental health. She doesn't understand what you've been through. She's jealous." I canceled. He was always gentle in tone, never raised his voice, never laid a hand on me. But somehow, I was still shrinking. The real turning point? It came 6 months in. I got a call from a gallery, one of the few I'd submitted my art to, back before Caleb said I wasn't ready to face that kind of pressure. They wanted to feature 3 of my pieces. I was stunned, shaking, elated. It felt like me again, the old me, the fearless girl who used to believe her work could make people feel something. I ran to Caleb, breathless, excited. I said, "They chose me. They want my work. Can you believe it?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He said, "Are you sure you can handle it?" I froze. "What do you mean?" "Just don't forget who helped you get to this point. Don't let this go to your head. People might judge you. You're still fragile." Fragile. That word again. Like a leash around my neck. He ended the conversation with, "If you go through with this, don't expect me to be there to catch you if you fall." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the dark, staring at the painting I titled Rebirth. It was one I'd made after Caleb entered my life. And for the first time, I looked at it and saw something I hadn't seen before. The figure in the center wasn't blooming. She was trapped, roots wrapped around her wrists, dragging her down while she smiled through the pain. And suddenly, I knew. I hadn't been healing. I'd been performing recovery for him. Because as long as I was still broken, he had a role to play. But if I ever became whole again, he'd have no purpose left. So that's when I started pretending. Smiling when he needed me to. Agreeing when he questioned my strength. Letting him believe he still held the pieces of me. But what he didn't know, I'd stopped being fragile a long time ago. And I was done letting someone else hold the glue. They say healing isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or cheers. It doesn't look like standing tall. Sometimes, it looks like stillness. Like sitting with your hands folded neatly in your lap, while your mind rewrites every rule they ever taught you. That's how it started for me. Not with rage, but with a decision. I would stop letting Caleb narrate my story. For months, he'd made me believe I was safe, but only because he kept me scared. He never needed to lock the doors. He just made sure I forgot how to reach the handle. But the gallery offer? That was my door. And instead of stepping through it, I had hesitated. Not because I wasn't ready, but because I'd been trained to believe I never would be. That realization cracked something open inside me. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I watched. Watched the way Caleb would ask how I felt, then twist the answer. Watched the way he smiled when I stumbled. Watched the way he positioned himself in every photo of my progress, like he'd been the one who painted it all. That's when I stopped talking so much. Stopped asking for permission. Started writing again, but not in the journal he could find. No, I bought a new one. A black notebook with no label, no lines. I kept it hidden under the loose floorboard near the kitchen sink. In it, I wrote everything. But not like before. This time, I wasn't just writing my pain. I was writing his patterns. You see, when someone tries to gaslight you, the worst part isn't believing their lie. It's when you start lying to yourself for them. I had spent months convincing myself that maybe I was weak. That maybe Caleb was right. Maybe I did need him. But now, I was done performing gratitude for someone who weaponized it. My silence became my shield. He didn't notice at first. Still thought I was the same girl, trembling, uncertain, desperate for his approval. He didn't realize that I had started recording every conversation. That I began emailing files to a cloud drive under a fake name. That I was taking pictures of my artwork before he could help me edit them. That I was backing up my original journals, the real ones, and filing for copyright on my pieces behind his back. This wasn't just an escape plan. It was a counterstrike. Caleb had built his identity around saving me. But what happens when your favorite puppet starts cutting its own strings? He didn't notice the shift. Not at first. Because I smiled when I needed to. Laughed when it made him comfortable. Whispered thank you when he brought me tea I didn't ask for. But inside, I was sharpening. And the more I pulled away, silently, invisibly, the more he tightened his grip. Why don't you confide in me like you used to? I miss the old you. The softer version. You've been acting different lately. Are you hiding something? Oh, the irony. Because yes, I was hiding something. But it wasn't another man. Or some secret betrayal. It was my reawakening. Then came the final straw. A message. From someone I didn't expect. Brielle. My friend. The one Caleb had pushed away. She sent me a screenshot. A post from a Reddit support forum. Anonymous. Written by someone calling himself Wounded Healer 85. The post read, "Has anyone ever helped someone through deep trauma only to feel like they owe you everything afterward? I'm with this girl. She was a mess when we met. I pulled her from the edge. Now she's trying to grow and find herself, and I'm wondering, was I just a stepping stone? Is she about to leave me behind? I feel used. I built her. Now she acts like she doesn't need me." The post had a timestamp and a writing style that was too familiar. The more I read it, the more bile rose in my throat. Because there, between the vague details and performative sadness, was my life. Our private conversations. My trauma. My breakdowns. Laid out like content for strangers. They pitied him. Called him a selfless man. Said I sounded ungrateful. Emotionally unstable. Suggested I was the real manipulator. And all Caleb did was upvote their comments. I stared at the screen for 10 whole minutes. Then I laughed. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't broken. It was clear. Because in that moment, I knew something he didn't. You don't get to write someone's tragedy and call yourself the hero. That night, I cooked him dinner. Spaghetti. Garlic bread. Wine. He smiled across the table and said, "I feel like we're finally getting back to where we were." I smiled too. And said, "Not quite. But soon." He didn't know the wine was cheap. The food was cold. Because I was already elsewhere, 5 steps ahead. That was the last night I ever let him believe I was his. They say revenge is best served cold. But I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted him to feel what it's like to doubt your own reflection. To hear your own voice and question if it's really yours. To sit in the silence you once built for me. Only this time, with no one coming to rescue him. I began with his ego. That precious, delicate thing he wore like armor. The mask of the healer. The man who saves broken women. So I gave him the one thing he feared most. An audience. I gathered everything. Screenshots of the Reddit posts. Voice recordings of his gaslighting. Scans of my altered journals, side by side with the originals. Video clips of him undermining me with soft-spoken venom. And most importantly, a recorded phone call where he admitted, laughing, She was nothing before me. Everything she has now, that's because I molded her. It was a masterpiece. But I didn't post it online. No, that would have been too easy. I sent it to his mentor, his therapist friends, his job's HR department, his ex-girlfriend, the one he claimed was crazy. And I sent it to Brielle with a note that said, "He always said the truth could ruin everything." I figured I'd help. While the fallout began, I did the one thing he told me I wasn't ready for. I went to the gallery, not just with the pieces they requested, but with a series I'd been working on secretly. Each painting was a visual map of my life with him. Silk Noose, a portrait of a smiling woman stitched into a corset made of apology notes. Invisible Hands, a shadow gripping a woman's heart through her ribs. Reconstruction, a woman taping herself back together while a man in the background holds scissors. I titled the collection, Beneath the Saving. The response? Unreal. People cried in front of my paintings. Strangers told me they saw themselves in the silence, the chaos, the survival. One critic wrote, "This artist transforms abuse into art, not through gore, but through restraint. You can feel the scream trapped in each canvas." I smiled, because that was exactly the point. I wasn't shouting. I didn't need to. Meanwhile, Caleb's world began to unravel. His Reddit account got banned. His job launched an investigation. His curated online image of kind, emotionally intelligent partner was shredded. And just when he tried to frame himself as the victim of cancel culture, a second package arrived. From me. In it, a copy of his healing playlist, the one he made for me. Each song now overlaid with a voice note of him gaslighting me between tracks. The caption? "You said I was a project. Now I'm a finished piece." He texted, called, begged, then threatened, said I was destroying a good man. I replied once, just once. Good men don't have to break women to feel whole. Then I blocked him. Forever. But my favorite part? The one detail I never told anyone? I left one final painting out of the gallery. It's called The Quiet Break. A woman shattering into glass, but no sound, no scream. Just fragments falling in slow motion. That painting hangs in my studio now. I see it every morning. Because it reminds me. You can break quietly. You can rebuild silently. And when you rise, the ones who broke you won't hear it coming. People think revenge is the end of the story. It's not. It's just a door you walk through. And on the other side, there's silence. Peace, maybe. But also, something else. Something colder. After the gallery, I didn't hear from Caleb again. Not directly. A mutual friend said he left the city. Another said he was trying to get help. Someone even told me he was blaming me for his collapse, said I was a dangerous narcissist in disguise. I didn't care. Because by then, I'd learned something crucial. The loudest people in the room are often just terrified no one's watching anymore. Let them scream. Let them twist the narrative. I didn't need to defend myself. Because I had already won. And still, there was one thing I hadn't told anyone. Not Brielle. Not my therapist. Not even myself, really. I'd planned this before I knew I was going to need it. See, way back, in the early days, there were cracks in Caleb's story I never admitted to noticing. The way he always found me crying, even when I hadn't called. How he knew details I'd never said aloud. The one night I woke up to him staring at me, whispering, "You're not ready to leave me yet." I told myself I imagined it. Told myself he loved me. But some part of me, some buried, feral part, was already preparing. Even while I loved him. Even while I thought he was my safe place. So when people ask me how I built such a perfect revenge plan, I don't say much. I just smile. Because the truth is, he taught me how to do it. Not by accident, but by design. He spent so long dismantling me piece by piece. I learned every joint, every hinge, every lever in my own mind. So when it came time to reverse it, I didn't just know where to hit him. I knew how to do it without making a sound. But here's the twist no one sees coming. I didn't just destroy Caleb. I destroyed the version of myself who needed him. And she fought back. In the quiet. In my dreams. In the way I sometimes almost texted him on bad days. Because trauma is loyal. It doesn't leave just because the abuser does. So I had to bury her too. That girl who thought love had to hurt. The one who whispered thank you every time someone didn't leave. The one who mistook control for care. And now I'm not afraid of breaking anymore. Because I know the truth. He held me when I was shattered. Promised he'd never leave. Watched me heal with his love. And then used every piece of my healing to destroy me. But he forgot one thing. I know how to break. Without making a sound. And now I know how to rebuild. Without asking permission.